to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Woo! Happy Wednesday. Look at this haircut. I told my barber, get me a little tighter. I needed some of the gray cut out. I love it. I like it. It looks good. I hope that you guys are going to enjoy today's show because it is going to be magnificent. Magnificent. I'm going to start out talking about Brett Favre and his announcement yesterday that he has Parkinson's, but we're going to cover some other things, including something very fascinating in college football with the UNLV quarterback, a grad transfer who gets them off to a 3-0 start. UNLV's number 3 in the coaches poll, and the quarterback, is his name Matthew Sluka? Matthew Sluka. He taps out, says that he's got a contract dispute over NIL. There were promises made that aren't being kept. There may be more to this story, and this could just be the beginning of increased chaos in college football. So we'll address that. TJ Moe's here in studio with us. Obviously, Butter, Steve Kim's going to join us. Wow. Do I have a conversation we need to have about Caitlin Clark and Nike? Ethan Strauss, the House of Strauss. If you're not subscribed to Ethan's work, you need to be. This guy is the best guy, other than me, talking about the culture of sports and getting at amazing issues that a lot of people are avoiding and won't talk about. But he has written a story, and we'll get to it, that Nike is refusing to take advantage of the Caitlin Clark phenomenon because of Asia Wilson, because of deference to Asia Wilson. They don't want to promote Caitlin Clark because they don't want to offend Asia Wilson. Are you kidding me? This is how far we've gone with this DEI crap. We'll talk about it in the back of the show. We will discuss also Dan Campbell and this series of events related to Will Levis, Dan Campbell, the coach of the Detroit Lions, Will Levis, Marlon Humphrey, Daniel Jones. These guys are getting harassed by fans at an unprecedented level. Things are getting dangerous for professional athletes, professional football in particular, because gambling is such a big deal in professional football. And gamblers get upset. And gamblers they're fantasy players too. Fantasy, they don't like to consider themselves gamblers, but that's what they are. And so there's a level of harassment. Something else has gone on with Dan Campbell. He's had to sell his house and all that. We'll get into that. But I just want to take a few minutes, but just buckle up. Well, this is a blockbuster show today with some issues that I don't think other people will cover the way that we will. That's why you're tuned in to Fearless, and thank you so much. I want to spend some time here reflecting on Brett Favre, who announced in front of Congress that he has Parkinson's. Let's play SOT number 1.
Sadly, I also lost an investment in a company that I believed was developing a breakthrough concussion drug I thought would help others. And I'm sure you'll understand why it's too late for me, because I've recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's.
So that was Brett Favre revealing information or a diagnosis that he shared with me at some point earlier this year. I didn't want to go into it until, Brett was ready, but there's a reason why, we didn't bring Brett Favre back this year as a part of the show. And it's because I felt like, and he felt like, he needed to focus on his health and this Parkinson's diagnosis. And if you've watched Brett on the show last year, particularly some of the cookouts when we had him here in studio, you could see his health. He was having issues, handshaking, sometimes not as clear and as thoughtful as he was in person. He was great, sometimes over Skype. It was a bit difficult. He's struggling with a serious health condition. And my involvement with Brett Favre, bringing him onto the show, I enjoyed Brett Favre like everyone else did as a football player. enjoyed him immensely. You heard me talk about Favre as a teammate, the ultimate teammate in professional sports, in my opinion. Brett and I had a conversation on one of the Cookout shows where we talked about what happened in that Monday Night Football game that'll never be forgotten. His dad dies. Brett plays that game. He plays an incredible game. And I said in real time during that game, I was like, holy cow, look at Brett Favre's teammates. Look what they're doing for him. And not as a shot at Brett, as praise of Brett. Like, these guys love Brett Favre. And they are balling out on Monday Night Football, making all these circus catches because they want to be there for Brett Favre in this moment. And so many people interpret it as a testament to Brett's greatness. Brett was great whether he had that Monday Night Football game or not. But what his ability to connect with his teammates and be beloved by his teammates and to have his teammates stand up for him, that's the Brett Favre that I liked, respected, and admired, just like everyone else did who followed the National Football League at that time. And that's why I've been so bothered by the manipulation, exploitation of a complicated political issue that has been exploited to paint Brett Favre as some sort of racist, as some sort of out-of-control criminal, as some sort of exploiter of the poor. It's just not true. And any elementary understanding of the facts, Southern Miss, the school, is owned by the state. It's funded by the state. Brett Favre talking to politicians, trying to get them to invest in Southern Mississippi, the school he graduated from, the school his daughter played volleyball at, in trying to get them to invest in a volleyball facility at a school that they fund. It's their school, the state of Mississippi. That's not inappropriate. That's not some criminal mastermind that needs to bilk the state of Mississippi out of millions of dollars. Brett Favre is independently wealthy. He made a fortune in the NFL and as a spokesperson for Wrangler and all the other different revenue streams that go along with being the face of the National Football League. The way the story has been unpacked. What about Brett Favre? Every time a black athlete gets in trouble, does anything illegal, how come you ain't talking about Brett Favre? Because the entire story is a lie. And it's being exploited to bring down Brett Favre and being exploited to smear a white athlete. Period. End of story. And so as we sit here today, knowing now what's going on with Brett Favre and his health, people will be analyzing Brett's legacy. And they're likely, some of those people, some of the race idolaters, will likely use the deal in Mississippi to smear Brett's legacy. Oh, it's tarnished his legacy. No, not if you're really paying attention. This man was a beloved NFL football player. His teammates loved him. His black teammates loved him because of who he was and the way he carried himself. And this whole deal about, oh my God, they took money out of the mouth of welfare recipients. No, they didn't. You understand politics and the corrupt politicians. That's where your animus should be directed towards. They build in millions and millions of dollars into these charity welfare initiatives so they can manipulate and use the money however they see fit. Blame the politicians, not the NFL quarterback legend who's on the phone trying to say, hey man, build a volleyball facility over here at Southern Miss. I don't care how you finance it. So Brett Favre's legacy as a great NFL player and as a great teammate remains intact. That should be his legacy. any of this Mississippi stuff. And I can understand why Brett Favre was so upset with Shannon Sharpe. Brett played with Shannon's brother, Sterling Sharpe. They were a dynamite combination. Sterling Sharpe knows exactly who Brett Favre is. And to have Shannon know what his brother knows and what his brother surely has shared, and then to get on TV and to pretend like Brett Favre is Al Capone or whoever notorious criminal. I can't think of a second one. But anyway, Shannon Sharpe knows he's wrong. Other people know they're wrong. Brett Favre is just an excuse so that the culture, the demographic that has such a destructive family structure can say, hey, we don't have a problem. What about Brett Favre? The fact that our kids are growing up with no fathers in the home, and the fact that our kids are out of control and they're looting places and they're doing other things. What about Brett Favre? Look what he did. And it's this whole theory and religion that's been set up that white people are the standard. It's not God. It's not the Bible. Don't judge yourself based off what the Bible says, what God wants you to do. Don't base your life around obedience to God. Interpret everything through, well, if white people did it, I can do it. Well, here's the secret about white people. They put their pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. They are just as flawed as you, me, and everybody else. And so if they are your standard, you don't have a standard, because there's nothing corrupt, immoral, illegal that white people haven't done. They're just like everybody else. And so if you sit around every day and say, well, P. Diddy, is bringing in little kids and sexually exploiting it, well, we don't have to concern ourselves with that. Jeffrey Epstein did it. And we know that Bill Clinton and the Clintons were involved. So white people did it, so, it's fine that Diddy did it. That's your standard. That's a godless standard. That's a secular standard. You have made the white man your God. He is not my God. God is my God. Jesus Christ. Leave Brett Favre alone. His legacy remains intact. He's a great man, great football player. Let his wife judge him. And her judgment seems pretty solid to me. She has stayed with him despite his flaws and mistakes. If she can forgive him, the rest of us need to move on and deal with who the real Brett Favre is. And the real Brett Favre is, to me, the greatest teammate in the history of the NFL. That's his leg. Great player, but more than anything, great teammate. People loved him and gave their all for him. So I wanted to get that off my chest, and I've done that. Thank you so much. I'll give Steve and TJ and Butter a chance when we come back to give a quick thought on Brett Favre, what they remember about Brett Favre, and then we're going to get into some of these other issues that I think are really fascinating, particularly this Caitlin Clark deal, particularly this Matt Scola, this quarterback. Is it Scola or Sucker? I'm seeing it spelled two different ways. Sluka. Yeah, somewhere it's spelled S-K-U-L-A on this piece, Sluka. Anyway, thank you. Before I go, did you know that 17 Christians are killed for their faith every day in Nigeria? Every day in places like Nigeria, our fellow Christians face unimaginable persecution. Here's a stark truth. 90% of Christian persecution deaths worldwide in the last 2 years have been in Nigeria, often at the hands of radical Islamic jihadists. This isn't a statistic. These are lives, families, and communities torn apart. Imagine being targeted for your faith daily. That's the reality for many Nigerian Christians. But you can help change this story by partnering with Equipping the Persecuted. Your monthly donation becomes a lifeline. It's about providing security, resources, and hope where it's needed the most. You can be a hero in this silent war. Join us and make a difference to help save lives. Visit equippingthepersecuted.com or .org. I'm sorry, equippingthepersecuted.org, O-R-G, now to start your monthly donation, which will help create sustainable hope for people you reach. Together, we stand with our persecuted brothers and sisters in Nigeria. Visit equippingthepersecuted.org today and take action to help protect an orphan or care for a widow. Steve Kim, TJ Moe, and your boy Butter. Next. Don't miss a second of Fearless. We'll be right back, but check out this clip from an earlier show. Man, Peyton Manning that struggled early, and there was another quarterback you mentioned. That wasn't in the social media era, and these kids, these young people, they're addicted to social media. And it does have an impact on their mentality, their anxiety. When you're sitting there like, it was one thing that, hey, I don't read the newspapers. And some athletes legitimately didn't read the newspapers, and they'd block it out, or it's just one guy, it's Whitlock at the Kansas City Star. But it's hard to avoid, particularly with everybody having a smartphone, it's hard to avoid everything that's being said over social media, all the memes. Putting a 22-year-old through that mentally can destroy it. Kim trying to say something to me? Oh, welcome back. I forget we're live now, and I got to be more careful. Thank you, Luke, for waking me up. Let's bring in Steve Kim, TJ Moe, Butter here in studio with me. Steve, we're talking about Brett Favre's legacy initially. Steve, how should Brett Favre be remembered?
A football player.
I'm talking about him like he's passed away. Hold on.
Yeah,
I'm talking about him like he's passed away, but.
Yeah, first of all, good morning to everybody. Yeah, and good health to Brett Favre. You have not died, okay? The rumors of his demise have been greatly exaggerated by Jason Whitlock. How I'm going to remember Brett Favre, who's still very much alive and kicking and doing well. A guy that had fun playing football, never really made it into a business, was incredible entertainment, was very, very compelling. And the one thing that he's taught me is from here on out, when somebody asks me to get involved with the charity of any case or to raise money, I'm just going to write a check and say, whatever you do, this is out of my checking account just for the insurance. I don't want any of those problems. Whatever you do is I do, but this is my contribution. That's it. That's what I've learned about Brett Favre, and that's how I'm going to remember him.
TJ?
Brett Favre he was in his heyday when I was starting to fall in love with football. He won his MVP, he was 97, right? I was 7 years old. And so he was the guy that I was watching. My dad is from Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. He's a cheesehead. So we sat down and watched the Packers along with the Rams and everything else. He's the guy that brought football alive. Today I watch the guys and they don't look like they're having near as much fun as Brett Favre ever did. He looked like he was having a blast. And in fact, when you go watch some of the old NFL films when he was mic'd up, everybody liked the guy. One of my favorite is when he was going through warm-ups and he missed a few passes. He walked over to the referee and said, "Hey, I think these are left-handed footballs. These aren't working for me." He just had a great sense of humor. The guy made it fun. You could see he was playing like he was a high school kid, even when he was getting paid millions of dollars in the NFL. I think we've lost that. He may have been the last guy that I remember playing like that.
I'm sitting here trying to think. Now, Josh Allen has a little bit of that in him, and I think we're going to see more of it now that Steffon Diggs is away, and he's clearly the man on that show. But you're right. Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey seem to have fun. But, man, I got to think. That's interesting. Butter, as the ultimate fan, your thoughts?
The ultimate average sports fan.
Yeah. Average, yeah.
Well, I'm reading here in the chat, and Brian Berner, a super fan of yours, he said, green and gold forever, and I would agree with him. Brett Favre was everything that watching him play was everything I loved about sports. And I think he transcended from a quarterback in the NFL to baseball players and other sports. They just loved the way he played the game, and I was a huge fan.
Butter, who dressed you this morning?
You know, what's so funny? Huh?
Jason,
I'm jealous.
You were part of this.
I am jealous.
No. Who dressed you this morning? I mean,
I wouldn't at your house.
What camera? There's a camera. Look, they said on the chats yesterday, Jason's using Butter as his punching bag. They made me stay in this outfit. I drove. I drove in here.
True.
I drove in here. I have a very pressed shirt hanging in the back room over there, and he's like, "No, Butter, let's wear that so we can tease you." So I got the. Let me show you which way the beach is today.
Steve, don't buy that. This is
no. Well, this is the thing.
Okay, let's even say it's true. How did you leave the house looking like that?
It is an egregious lie.
Yeah,
I've never heard such a lie.
Yeah, well, Jason,
Steve, go ahead here.
I would say, based on what Butter said, maybe we can now get a sponsorship through Everlast. The other thing is, maybe Butters is actually paying homage to Brett Favre and his informality, because this is a guy that would go to places. He was just dressed like a regular guy in his Wranglers and a T-shirt, backward cap. One last thing I want to add about Brett Favre that we don't talk about, for all the fun and entertainment he gave us. The absolute toughness to play in that era of football and to last and to play as many games as he did back in an era largely where you could still assault quarterbacks and it was legal. And the shots that he took and how he would run into piles face first. And for years, he never missed a game. I still remember that beating he took in that famous Bounty Bowl game in I believe it was a 2009 NFC Championship game at the Superdome. When you watch that game, based on the way the game is played and called today, it actually makes you wince the type of shots that Brett Favre took. And you know what? He kept getting back up.
Steve, great stuff. Sorry I had to sneak in my little cardio miracle there to keep my strength up. I'm going to transition here, and I'm glad, the fun, and I referenced Josh Allen. And that was more organic than it was strategic and a great segue. But it is, we plan to talk about Josh Allen. He made some interesting comments yesterday that I thought were a direct shot at Steffon Diggs and how free he feels now without Stefon Diggs, without this diva wide receiver. We mentioned this yesterday about, hey, look, these diva wide receivers just don't benefit the team the way we think that they do. And we're dumping major contracts on wide receivers now, and they don't produce a winning atmosphere, and people aren't taking that into calculation. But let's play the clip of Josh Allen, to me, taking a clear shot at Stefon Diggs.
No, and I think it's paying dividends of what we've worked on throughout the entire offseason and through training camp of the everybody eats mentality. And again, it could be your play, this play. You never know when it's going to happen, and that's the beauty of it. When guys get to buy into this and really understand, like, I may not get the ball 4 or 5 times thrown to me a game, but the 1 or 2 times I do, I'm going to have opportunities to be in the end zone. And, it's a fun and wonderful thing when you got a bunch of guys that don't care about the stats, they don't care about the touchdowns. And again, I think throughout practice, we've just had this mindset of like, hey, let's just do things the right way and find ways to win football games. That's what we're doing right now.
He could have added in and don't care about the quality of the strip clubs in Buffalo.
Oh, come on.
That's the only thing he left out by taking that pot shot at Stefon Diggs. He's actually got football players, young guys that are hungry, that just want to win, and he appreciates it. Is that not a clear shot at Stefon Diggs?
So you're telling me he's taking some digs at Stefon. I don't think there's anything that he was trying to hide. That was no play action fake. Jason, it's one thing in life, fellas, that when you are a diva, people are willing to put up with a lot of things. But once you are that diva that loses her voice and puts on about 25 pounds, you're not going to get the star treatment. And I read something this year, a couple of weeks ago, doing some NFL research from Warren Sharp. I know you're a big fan, Jason. I didn't realize that most of Stefon Diggs' production last year were in the first half of the season. In the second half of 2023, he was a declining diva. That you take a look at all his 100-yard games, the majority of them were in the first 2 months. And so, again, people are willing to put up with certain behaviors when you have a certain amount of production. That production is now gone, and it's very clear to me that the Buffalo Bills felt he was no longer worth the trouble.
TJ, you're a former wide receiver. You were a bit of a diva. You whined when you didn't get the ball at Mizzou. Belichick ran you off because of your diva-like behavior. Absolutely. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the less I got throwing the ball, the fewer concussions I got. So it actually wasn't such a bad thing. I'm sitting here trying to think of who's the last receiver who made a quarterback great. Because quarterbacks make receivers great all the time. We see it everywhere. I'm trying to think of a guy. It might be A.J. Green with Andy Dalton. We had the illusion that the red BB gun, as Colin Cowherd calls him, instead of the red rifle, was pretty good for a time. And is he a franchise quarterback? That discussion was had for quite a while. And it was because of A.J. Green, who could go out and do crazy things. I actually don't think A.J. Green was much of a diva. He was more in line with the Marvin Harrison approach than some of the others. Beyond that, I can't think of one.
Julio Jones, Matt Ryan maybe. And not that Matt Ryan was a bad quarterback, but Julio elevated Matt Ryan, I thought.
And Roddy White was there too.
Yeah.
Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson at Houston never really had a Pro Bowl quarterback, but some quarterbacks put up decent numbers with him, and Andre Johnson ended up in the Hall of Fame with guys like Matt Schaub throwing him the ball most of his career. That's another one I would add.
Megatron played with Matt Stafford. Correct?
He played with Stafford.
Yeah.
That's different.
What Stefon Diggs
might be in the Hall of Fame.
Might argue is he made his name with Case Keenum. He might argue that. Case Keenum is the one who threw him the ball.
Case Keenum had 1 year.
Sure,
yeah.
But he would argue he was a dominant receiver during that year.
Yeah.
I don't buy the argument because generally I think we see all the time. We get introduced to new receivers every year because of great quarterbacks. I mean, virtually every receiver Tom Brady ever had was introduced to us because Tom Brady's great and the receivers happen to be on the team. Okay, there's a long list of guys that we can go through. I mean, Welker was really good. Welker bounced around the NFL, was on some practice squads, whatever, until he discovered Tom Brady, right? I can't think of too many. And so we've gotten to the point where Josh Allen is saying, I don't need these guys. Everybody get out of my way, okay? Shut up, stay out of my way. I've had 3 or 4 different offensive coordinators. I put up numbers with everybody. Just stop talking. I don't want any more controversy around here than we need.
Butter, the reason I'm reluctant to go to you is because I don't want to put you on camera in that shirt. I mean, this is the ultimate. So we're going to skip over Butter for this topic. It's not worth it. I don't want to punish the audience by looking at this guy with. Do you ever get out in the sun, Butter?
You put me on camera in this shirt.
Do you ever get out in the sun? I mean, is there sun in your neighborhood?
There's a little sun.
What color's Butter?
Hey.
It's a yellowish kind of. It works.
Yeah,
I don't mind it. I figure if you're going to do this to me, it means you like me because you're teasing me because you like me.
Not true. I'm teasing because you're easy to tease. You're easy material for me. We're going to keep moving to something I've been trying to talk about for a week or more. But Dan Campbell is now saying he got doxxed. That, his daughter's classmate or something doxxed him. He's talked about how he's had to change his phone number. He's talked about how he's had to sell his house. We've seen Will Levis, the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, has talked about changing up his phone number. We've seen video of Daniel Jones getting harassed by fans after the game, waiting to harass him. We've seen it with Marlon Humphrey. We got a problem here in sports in terms of the intimacy and the entitlement, the expectations for fans and to have direct access because of social media that wasn't there previously. And now this goes along with these guys making all of this money. People are like, hey man, there's gotta be a price for all this money and fame. And so you have to deal with this level of harassment that's becoming pretty pervasive. I feel, this is the one thing I feel sympathy for with these athletes and Dan Campbell's a coach, but I think this is the influence of gambling and fantasy and elevated expectations through social media. Everybody feels like, people can tweet directly at you, you respond to them, and now all of a sudden it's like you know them and you have a right to be upset with them, show up at their house, dox them, and all this other stuff. This is a troubling pattern, and is going to, athletes and coaches have a right to take measures to protect themselves and distance themselves from fans. Am I missing anything here, Steve? Start us out here.
No, but it is like, to me, it really speaks and highlights the lack of civility in modern day culture and society. I read stories where Joe Paterno for years had his phone number listed in the phone book. And I guess once in a while someone would call and he'd actually have a friendly conversation with them. The great thing about sports, one of the great things, are the fans. One of the absolute worst things is fanatics. I do think there is a difference. And look, it's one thing to be upset at any coach or player. I don't think it gives them the right to start crossing boundaries. And my advice to any coach or athlete now is, during your playing days or during your tenure in a city, it's clear. Live in a gated community and don't have a landline. I think that's where we are in society. I'm actually surprised that a classmate of Dan Campbell's daughter, did she have a 3-team parlay? Did she was she really upset that Dan Campbell kept punting or faking field goals on his 2 yards? Look, I'm upset too, but if I saw Dan Campbell, I would just leave him alone. I'd be like, Dan, you're good, man. But again, you don't hear of this many things happening even 10 to 15 years ago.
TJ, before you jump in, I want to play just to get everybody up to speed. This is what happened with, this is Daniel Jones after a game. And look, high round draft pick. He's not that good of a player. He's making $40 million a year. I just don't, he should just be able to leave the game, go home. I don't know if he needs to face a level fans waiting around after the game to boo him. Let's play that clip.
I need $1 million. I need $1 million. I need $1 million, Daniel. I need $1 million, Danny. I need $1 million. Give me $1 million. You stop. Same thing every year.
Look, I'm not throwing a huge pity party for Daniel Jones. This isn't like doesn't feel life or death, but who knows? It could get out of hand. But I've actually experienced what he's talking about, and I felt like I deserved it. I don't think he deserves it, and maybe I hate to say, I don't hate to say it because he doesn't mind, but Frank Martin, the head coach at UMass. Used to be the head coach at Kansas State, used to be the head coach of South Carolina. One of the guys I respect the most. He's one of these coaching guys that, really hit it off with. And we didn't even start off as great. We started out as enemies when he was in Kansas State, and then we became friends and supportive. And Frank probably will come to roll call next year. But then I say all that to say, when Frank Martin was at Kansas State, and they had Michael Beasley, they had Bill Walker, and this is during the time when I wasn't super supportive of Frank Martin. I didn't understand what he was doing, didn't have a lot of respect for him. I walked into Kansas State, I think was either playing Kansas or someone else, but I walked into Bramlage Coliseum, their basketball arena, right before a tip-off. And I'm talking about, if Bramlage holds 13,000, 12,990 of the people in that arena were booing me as I walked from the tunnel to my seat on press row, on the front row of that, booing me, the whole arena. And it's all about stuff that I had written about Kansas State, not being on board with what they were doing. And I'm telling you, I didn't feel sorry for myself. I was like, these people have lost their mind. They're so focused on me. but I got it. I'm an outspoken columnist. I talk smack on their favorite team. I say things they didn't write. It's part of the give and take between you're going to be as outspoken as I am. People are going to be outspoken back. I got it. Didn't particularly like it, and people eventually got over it. And that years down the road, Frank and I become great friends and supportive of each other. But as a opinionist, I get it. As an athlete that just goes out and plays football, I just don't think this level of harassment or this level of animus. Boo him during the game, after the game, gloves should come off and leave people alone. And I just attach it to everything going on with Dan Campbell. I could play you the video of Marlon Humphrey that had a poor game and got harassed. But anyway, now, TJ, your thoughts.
Well, I don't think it's new as far as like 2024 new. I don't even think it's 2015 new. You remember the guy by the name of Kyle Brotzman, the kicker at Boise State when they were 10-0 playing Nevada, and he missed a 26-yarder at the end of regulation.
Oh, he deserved it.
And a 29-yarder at the end.
Anything shorter than 35. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that guy, they had a chance to play in the national title that year.
Yeah.
And now the 2010 was one of those years where you did have a chance. It was pretty wide open. And that guy got so many death threats and almost chased him out. I mean, destroyed. This is 2010. Social media was just ascending at this point. I didn't make my Twitter until 2009. And so it was not nearly what it was today. This has been happening. I think humans have sat around forever in their living room and say, that guy owes me his whole paycheck. I can't believe he just wasted 3 hours watching it. They've been doing this forever. The difference is I don't think they've been stalking people forever, waiting outside and screaming and harassing at them. But some of this comes with what I think you're talking about is Daniel Jones. I'm sure he wanted it. He's making $40 million a year. You took the money. And when people think you have a terrible contract and they're footing the bill because their ticket prices go through the roof, they feel like they get a license to harass you. I don't agree with that, but it does make some sense. If you were an underpaid quarterback, they probably wouldn't be doing this to you. If you were Daniel Jones, who came in, he was on his rookie contract. Man, we're getting a steal. He sucked today, but man, we're paying him nothing. We got all these receivers. We got a great defense because Daniel took a discount. He's not doing that. He took a massive contract. Now they can't pay a bunch of other people because he's making $160 million over the next 4 years.
But TJ,
get some of the, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, to that point, then, if I'm going to boo anybody and stalk them and heckle them as they go to the car, I'm looking at the GM, Joe Shine. He's the guy to blame. Yeah. There's never been a player that said, "Oh no, that's way too much money. I'm so mediocre. I only deserve 2/3 of this." You have to blame the management. And people know what he looks like now because HBO did a Hard Knocks on the offseason of the New York Football Giants. And I want to make it clear, people, leave Joe Shine alone too, okay? So I'm not advocating for that. I just want to make that clear.
It's part of why they're not having the same fun either, though, Jason.
Yeah.
That when you take so much money, the pressure comes along with it. Brett Favre wasn't making nearly this money in 1997. It's a lot easier to just go out and have some fun when there is not a paycheck hanging over your head that dictates what fans get to do to you, what the expectations are, what the media gets to do to you, and the pressure for you to keep your own job.
I would go to Butter, but I just saw Butter's arms on the screen, and they're nearly blinding. I mean, they're so white, they're nearly blind. Can you look at that? I mean, they're nearly blinding. But I do want to. Talking this through helps me because I got to be transparent. I'm sitting here criticizing fans for this, but when I was younger, as I sit here and think it through, I was capable of this. When I was. You talk about there's never been a more passionate Pacer fan than me as a kid. And so went to high school with a girl named Gail Lamy, probably junior high and high school with her. Gail, her dad was Bob Lamy. He was the play-by-play announcer for the Pacers. He eventually the Colts. He hosted a sports talk show. And as a kid, 14, 15, 16, I used to call his radio show and just go off on the Pacers and the organization, and mostly at the management because they poorly constructed the team. And I remember whatever year Stuart Gray, Steve, what year he's UCLA center, he came out of college.
86.
Yeah, they drafted him, and I was livid. And he was horrible. I used to call Bob Lamy's show and screaming, yeah. And then whatever year Adrian Branch played at Maryland, he was whatever year he came out of college, I believe the Pacers in the second round had a chance to draft Adrian Branch, and I was big on Adrian Branch. He got in trouble for drugs. I called him the dope man, and I was very upset they didn't draft the dope man. And I went to the Pacers draft party at Market Square Arena. I believe they selected Billy Martin. I'm doing this all off memory, but because it's that vivid to me as a kid. The Pacers drafted Billy Martin, I think, from Georgetown. Some kid named Martin from Georgetown, and I was irate. And Donnie Walsh, I think, was the general manager at the time. I'm high up in the stands, and I got Donnie Walsh's attention. And I had to be 17, 18 years old at this time. You dumb MF, you could have drafted the dope man. You could have drafted the dope man. You drafted Billy Martin. I was a nut. And that was me. And so I'm sitting here judging people and like, holy cow, that could have been me. Yeah, go ahead.
To your defense, though, Jason, you didn't drive and park on Donnie Walsh's driveway and camp out and wait for him to call him a dumb MFer for not drafting dope man. By the way, Adrian Branch ended up being a Lakers backup, like 11th man, not the 12th. He was like the 11th man. He actually has a championship ring. So the dope man got lucky that Donnie Walsh didn't draft him.
You know what's even better about Adrian Branch? He's a conservative. I saw him at TPUSA event out in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. Introduced himself to me, and I was like, the dope man. This was just last year. It was just last year.
Jason,
Butter, you got
man.
You got anything here?
Hey, here in Nashville, Tennessee, they put you on a big tour bus and drive you right to the stars' houses. So those guys don't want to come to Nashville because they'll take you right to the houses.
Huh. That's interesting because they do it out in LA too. There's tours. Yeah. This is so-and-so's house, blah, blah, blah. And so we're directing them at their targets. That's interesting. All right, we're about to get a little deeper here because I want to get into this Caitlin Clark. And Steve, have you had time? I emailed you Ethan Strauss's piece. Oh, you had? Oh, great, awesome. And so we'll get to that. This Caitlin Clark Nike thing, fascinating. Caitlin Clark, DiJonai Carrington. It's interesting. We'll talk about both of those things. Before we do that, though, guys, I want to talk to you. To those of you that are looking for alternative currency, for the first time in human history, you can spend physical gold on small transactions, such as a smoothie, while using the same type of money for large transactions, such as a home renovation. You can do this thanks to Alpine Gold. It's a precious metal IRA. Alpine Gold offers gold leases that pay you in gold. Everyone is eligible to start with returns of up to 3.5% average per year. The Goldback is the world's first physical interchangeable gold money that is designed to accommodate even small transactions. Goldbacks do not need someone else's approval to spend, do not specify where they can be spent or what they can be spent on, and the Goldbacks are anonymous. To learn more about Goldbacks and Alpine Gold, visit alpinegold.com and use the promo code FEARLESS to receive free shipping on orders over $200. That's alpinegold.com and the promo code FEARLESS. Woo! Man, this topic here, I just got to give Ethan Strauss credit. Ethan Strauss, as I said at the top of the show, you know, I'm not going to put him on my level, but he's damn close. This guy writes and talks about the things that other journalists in the sports world just refuse to address and talk about. The guy's amazing. I subscribe to the House of Strauss. I suggest the rest of any of you interested in the culture around sports and the issues around sports that mainstream corporate media shy away from. Ethan used to work at ESPN. He built a brand, I think, initially covering the Golden State Warriors. He's gone independent. He's one of the great voices out there. He's written a piece about Caitlin Clark and I think it just came out this morning. We saw it just before the show, and thank God we did, because it gets to everything that we've been talking about, like what's wrong with the WNBA, what's wrong with diversity, equity, and inclusion, what's wrong with this race agenda, what's wrong with this Black Queens agenda. And so he's written a story about Nike and why Nike has been reluctant to take advantage of Caitlin Clark, because they have. And what I've always thought was like, man, that contract she signed seemed pretty reasonable. It's like, wow, Caitlin Clark comes out of Iowa, and I started saying after her junior year in college, like, hey man, she's the biggest star in college sports. And then after what she did at Iowa her senior year, I started saying, hey, I think she's gonna be the biggest star in sports. And we've never seen this. This is a woman in America that is going to dwarf the men in terms of popularity and influence, driving. We haven't seen this since Tiger Woods, was my argument, that Tiger Woods lifted up the PGA Tour and made it very, very relevant. But this is even more impressive because the PGA Tour had relevance. They had Jack Nicklaus, who's a legitimate star of stars. The WNBA's never had anything, nothing. Cheryl Miller couldn't really move the needle. Candace Parker couldn't really move the needle. Now they have this woman, and she's made the WNBA relevant. And I'm like, why isn't she being promoted? And how did Nike get her at such a reasonable, wasn't it a 22 or 32?
$28 million over 8 years.
Over 8 years. I'm like, that doesn't add up to me.
I think some of this might be a little bit of revisionist history. Going into we all sat here and argued that she should go back to Iowa.
Yeah.
Because she would die and get swallowed up in the WNBA and everybody would stop watching her. That's when Nike struck. I think they got this well before she was showing triple, quadruple the ratings of other WNBA games.
We could sit here and speculate, and we did on this show, and for about, I think it was maybe 72 hours, I thought like, hey, this will be over with after college, and said so on this show. And my memory, and it could be wrong, but within 72 to what's 72 times 86, 96 hours? Is it 24 times 7 plus 20, 96? Within 4 days, I'm telling you, I think I had pivoted to,
definitely pivoted after the WNBA draft. For sure you were pivoted by then, so it was before there was a game.
Okay, Hadley, somebody help me out. When was the WNBA draft? Because the NCAA tournament wraps up in early April, and wasn't the WNBA draft maybe just a week after that? And so
April 15th.
Yeah, April 15th. NCAA tournament probably wraps up April 8th, maybe, something like that. And so it wasn't a long process of me going, hey, I think this will be over, to, holy cow, this woman's going to be the biggest star in sports. And I'm not Nike. They're experts at this. They were able to see, and again, you weren't around at this time, but it's like when Michael Jordan left North Carolina, it's not just his size that two centers went ahead of him. No one fully understood what he was going to be in the NBA. And there's a guy at Nike that they made the movie about, that Matt Damon played or whatever.
Sonny Vaccaro.
But yeah, Sonny Vaccaro, thank you. Sonny Vaccaro saw it. And again, Nike's supposed to be able to see these things and know. But anyway, Ethan Strauss argues in the piece. Let me read some of the piece and then bring you guys into this. I'm going to read a significant chunk of this just so, and I'm sorry, Ethan, make people get subscriptions instead of me just reading your stuff out loud. But back when Nike stock was around its all-time high, I wrote a 5,000-word essay on the corporation's awkwardly angry play for female customers. At the time I wrote it back in 2021, I couldn't foresee that the mega corp would sign history's biggest women's college basketball phenom in 2022. How fortuitous. I also couldn't foresee that this player would maintain the fame momentum through her interest into the WNBA, where she'd finish all first team as a rookie, and who could have predicted her games would average more than 1 million viewers. contrasted against the games of other players that would register $300K. Road arenas packed where she goes, crowds of girls wearing her jerseys. Nike signed her through 8 years at a cheap rate. You tell me that, and I assume Nike's doing fantastic in 2024 because it sounds like you're describing a billion-dollar athlete who suddenly appeals to previously unreached demos. The apparel behemoth has majority male customers and has long craved similar success with women. Fortunately, they signed the woman to build a brand around. Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Caitlin Clark. Instead, in the early Clark era, Nike stock has tanked over the span, and the CEO just got ousted. By the way, though Clark got famous around 22, if you want to buy her shoe, you could be waiting until 2026 or 2027. He goes on to point out, like, Caitlin Clark's in her first NBA playoffs, first NBA season, and she's wearing Kobe Bryant's shoes. They don't even have a shoe for her. And it may not be till 2026, 2027. LeBron James had his own signature shoe his rookie year. So 20 years ago, Nike was nimble enough and had enough vision to see that, hey, let's get LeBron's shoe out here. This guy's going to be a big deal. They can't do this for Caitlin Clark for some reason. And lo and behold, let me get to the money shot. Where is the money paragraph where they mention Asia? Oh, here it is. So he walks through, like, there was a Nike ad for Iowa Caitlin, though it wasn't exactly pushed on the public. There has been no Nike commercial for Clark as a pro. Let that sink in. No Caitlin Clark commercial. She's had 4 years of being the biggest star in all of sports, driving all these television ratings. No Nike commercial. That was me. Now back to Ethan Strauss. Now Clark's Fever are in the WNBA playoffs, and she's wearing Kobe sneakers instead of her own signature brand. In summary, Nike lucked into the marketing chance of a generation, and they're using that to advertise old product. Why is it happening this way? Now here's the money. Based on conversations with people in the know, it indeed has something to do with the WNBA MVP and Nike athlete, A'ja Wilson. But beyond Wilson, it's about the culture of the company that's more concerned with quelling noise rather than making it as Nike once used to. This is DEI. This is, hey, A'ja will be offended. This is Don Staley and the rest of the angry Yas Queen feminists saying, don't do that for that white girl until you make this 6'5" black woman more popular than the white girl. That when you look around and ask yourself, why is the WNBA marketing the playoffs leading with A'ja Wilson and not Kelsey Mitchell, not Caitlin Clark? Why? Why are they? No, you're white. You have to stand in line. We're committed to A'ja Wilson. A'ja Wilson's not going to sell a shoe. Period. End of story. With Caitlin Clark, and I'm just going to keep it real, and I know this is embarrassing, what I'm about to say. I know it's embarrassing, but I'm going to say it. If Caitlin Clark had a signature shoe, I would wear them. I would.
Just at home, in private.
I would wear them out publicly. Butter, you look like you agree with me. Would you wear a Caitlin Clark shoe?
You know what they say, Democrats buy sneakers too. I would do it.
And I'm just telling, that's how, and again, I get that she allegedly, likes Kamala Harris, but I like Caitlin Clark more than I dislike her liking, she's 22, a woman. Of course she's a liberal. She'll grow out of it. Common sense will visit upon her the truth. She'll figure out why she's not getting the same treatment as Tiger Woods and LeBron James. These leftists are idiots. Idiots. They're not about business. They're not about growing the WNBA. They're about diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is insanity, what they're doing to Caitlin Clark. It's bad business. It's short-sighted. when this woman exits the playoffs, probably tonight, the WNBA playoffs are over. You wonder why they sat and watched her get stabbed in the eye by DiJonai Carrington and did nothing? They want her out of the playoffs. They think they're going to use these playoffs to build up a 6'5" Amazon woman, A'ja Wilson, into the biggest star in sports. It ain't happening. They're lying to themselves. They're delusional. Ethan Strauss, I salute you, my friend. You're awesome. Thank you for writing this. Thank you for connecting all the dots for me and everybody else. Steve Kim, your thoughts?
Couple of things. Ethan Strauss is really good, but he's never cussed out Donnie Walsh, so I'll still give you the advantage there. Number two, I know you heard the reaction of me and TJ. You admitting that you would wear Air Caitlin's is the least surprising thing. We're just still disgusting. Okay? But we just had to do the gasp anyway, me and TJ, on cue. The other thing is, this is where I wish we had access to Thomas Sowell and could get him on, because he talks about this a lot, this type of concept. This is white corporate guilt leading to corporate losses. And he has a phrase that I use a lot that I believe rings true here. It's the philosophy of grievance. I think that story by Mr. Strauss nails it. This is about the reaction, and that how are you pushing not this great white hope or this great white hype, because she has far surpassed that. They don't want to prop up something that is very legitimate in the great white savior, because in many ways, and I say this jokingly, but I'm also serious, she should be the logo of the league. When you look at those television ratings for the playoffs on Sunday, on a weekend where there's the National Football League, I can't deny it. There is Caitlin Clark fever. It is running wild. And once she exits, so are 80% of those who watch those games on Sunday. That is the reality. And also the social media blowback and the phrase, what about Favre, would be replaced by, what about A'ja? So that is certainly a factor. And Jason, I'm going to end it like this. The most interesting dynamic of this whole thing is, I believe the biggest demographic, or one of the bigger demographics that would actually buy the shoe en masse, would be black men. I have noticed this over social media. I've also charted it. I've talked about it. Black men seem to be the biggest fans of her game. It's very organic. It's very natural. And now there's also this cultural civil war between a lot of the WNBA black female fans and the black men that support Caitlin Clark. You see it every day over Twitter.
Let's make a compromise. How about I buy you some Caitlin Clark slippers? You can wear them alone in your home. That way, when we're out to dinner, I don't have to answer questions about you wearing your Caitlin Clark shoes.
You gotta understand, the added benefit of a black man wearing a Caitlin Clark shoe, it's a bat signal to white women. Holler at me. Go ahead, TJ.
Here's what Nike's doing. Nike has made a calculation that, hey, we got her for 8 years and we got her cheap. We don't have to renegotiate. We'll see. But we got her at $3.5 million a year. We don't want to be called racist. We'll lose we'll have a lot of issues, particularly in the WNBA. So they put her in line and said, look, we're going to push A'ja Wilson first. It's going to take us a little while. We'll get all this stuff out. She will flop, obviously. Nike knows this. They're not stupid. Then Caitlin Clark gets rolled out, and they get to push the racism claims off on the consumers. Well, not us. Come on, we spent a year or two trying to push A'ja Wilson. It is the consumers. They're racist. You know, we signed Caitlin, but I'm telling you, it's Jason Whitlock and TJ Moe and Butter and Steve Kim. They're the real racists.
I also think, though, what their plan is, they're going to push Caitlin and Paige Beckers, and maybe push Paige Beckers maybe more. Maybe Paige Beckers coming into the league next year. All the Yas queens have signed off on Paige Beckers. You know, she bows to the Yas queens and admits her white privilege and knows that this league has been carried by black women to total irrelevancy. $10 billion in debt thanks to these black women carrying us. Don't you understand? If they didn't carry us, we'd be 11 billion in debt rather than 12 or whatever it is. It
won't work though. She's Rip Hamilton. She's a catch and shoot girl. You have to have the flash. Ethan talked about this in his article. He's like, look, there was a time where Tim Duncan was the best player, obviously, and nobody cared because Allen Iverson was the guy with flash. That is Caitlin with Paige Beckers. They can push whoever they want. The consumers will not buy it.
TJ.
I love the Tim Duncan analogy. Go ahead, Steve.
To your point, here's the thing that's going to be ironic and funny, but not in a ha-ha way. Those who will scream loudest about this dynamic of why are you pushing Caitlin Clark and look at all these racists buying her shoes are the same people that have never really supported the WNBA and probably will not have Asia Wilson's on their feet. It has become a complete guilt trip to go out there and cast this wide net of accusations over anyone that supports Caitlin Clark. But again, I would ask those very same fine individuals, what have you done to push the agenda of Asia Wilson and the WNBA before Caitlin Clark ever stepped on a WNBA floor?
This whole thing makes me circle back to they don't deserve her and she's not going to. She's a competitor. She wants to be the all-time great. It's an incredible story. But, man, I wouldn't be. She's feeding pearls to swine. She's feeding pearls to swine. That's biblical, Steve. But I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm not forcing this because you're in the country music lane, but I'm thinking about, wasn't there some black woman that just won Artist of the Year in the last couple of years that hadn't really sold a record? Black female artist. There's a big country music star I was with in Las Vegas. I'm not going to call his name, but he was complaining about it to me, and then he got scared. He's like, oh, my God, Whitlock could repeat this. Don't ever tell anybody I said this, but it was a couple, 2 or 3 years ago.
Tracy Chapman, does that sound right?
No, Tracy Chapman's a big...
She's the first black woman in it.
Yeah. I can't think of her, brother can't think of it any, but this is in all industries. Country music has bent over backwards with DEI and trying to, people are pretending like Beyonce put out a halfway decent country song. Is Mickey Guyton, is that a woman or a man?
It's a girl.
I think
black chick, yeah.
Yeah, Mickey Guyton. Didn't she win Artist of the Year?
She's been up for some stuff. There's a lot of different, ACMs and CMAs. There's different things. I think she may have won something for CMT. I mean, just to say what you're talking about though, I'm a huge golf fan. But when Tiger, at Tiger's heyday,
play shirtless next time. Get some sun. But continue.
I just feel like this whole thing it's really when Tiger Woods isn't in a tournament or hasn't been on at the top of his game the last few years. I quit watching golf, and I love golf. So I mean, this whole thing that is a white or black issue to me is kind of I don't really buy into it. She's just popular, and she brings something that nobody else is bringing. I, as a sports fan, have watched her, but I don't watch golf, and I love golf, but I watched it for Tiger Woods.
Like most people, and I like golf, but haven't watched it since Tiger Woods' latest injury, and when he comes back after this 20th surgery, I'll watch again, be disappointed again when he gets hurt again, and then go back to not watching. But yeah, Mickey Guyton was new Artist of the Year in 2021, and I don't think she had sold many records at that point. This is a level of insane. Nike stock is tanking. CEO gets run out. They have an easy answer and solution. And I'm telling you, I have thought as I've watched WNBA games. I've had to one game. There were so many Angel Reese commercials every time they went to commercial breaks. But you have this deal where you can watch the team stream or you can watch the ION broadcast of it. And I can remember I switched to the team stream because I got tired of every commercial being Angel Reese. And I haven't seen them try to stuff Caitlin Clark down my throat at all.
Gatorade's got several commercials. I think maybe 3 of them.
Yep.
I've seen a fair bit of her. and that they're the ones taking advantage. I mean, Nike is leaving. Nike has the money, I guess like everybody else, to really push something forward. And when Nike wants to push somebody, they push them. I mean, LeBron, during his original pushing out, couldn't get rid of him on my television. But Gatorade does a pretty good job covering. She's been on Xfinity. She's been on some stuff. In fact, when she was at Iowa, they had several commercials. I think she had already signed with Gatorade at Iowa. And also Allstate, I think.
Yeah, she's definitely. But again, they just don't get jammed down my throat.
State Farm, that's what it was.
They don't get jammed down my throat the way Angel Reese. I'm just every commercial break during the game, and it was like 4 straight commercial breaks. It was like Angel Reese, and I'm like, are you kidding me? What's going? And I switched streams. I just didn't want Angel Reese jammed down my throat like that. This is very. We'll get back to this conversation again tomorrow. The Fever play tonight. They'll probably get eliminated. We can play the clip, perhaps, of. Let's play the clip of Caitlin Clark pretending that DiJonai Carrington didn't poke her in the eye intentionally. Let's play that clip and get everyone's reaction. Play that.
Circling back on the play with your eye, what would you say to the crowd of people that think a hit like that was intentional and maybe even warrants a suspension?
It wasn't intentional by any means. You just watched the play. It wasn't intentional.
All right. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Caitlin.
I don't buy that. I think that's her riding really high on the high road. Hats off to her. I'm telling you, off the court, I don't know if she's made a single mistake. She can't tell the truth in that situation. She knows what she's up against, so she pretends like, the woman. Play the clip of her gouging her in the eye, the slow-mo 4-second clip where she curls her fingers and punches her in the eye. Yeah, that's not intentional. Okay. Steve, what do you think about Caitlin's answer here?
Yeah, I mean, what else can she say? She's so handcuffed. And the reality is with the media, with the virus of white guilt that has overtaken that industry, I'd say the last, 12 to 15 years, if not longer. Soon as they gave the answer, like, okay, that's the quote. We're good. Leave it out. Say, hey, guys, Caitlin wasn't poked in the. For you to call it a stabbing, though, I just. It's the most famous stabbing of a white girl since Nicole Simpson, by the way. But I mean, but you're right, though, Jason. What else is she supposed to say?
Hold for a second. You're giving me, for you to call it a stabbing, and then you compare it to Nicole.
Sorry.
You think I'm inappropriate?
Sorry. You know you're right.
Right,
I need to be in the butter box. I need to be in the butter box.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the remake of The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler?
The remake, no.
All right, there's a scene where Adam Sandler, Michael Irvin's in it, I think Nellie's in it, they're playing basketball, and Michael Irvin is just fouling the snot at him. Finally, because it's one-on-one to try to get the guys to go from the yard and join the team to play the guards, right? And Michael Irvin throws him into the post on a layup, and they're not calling foul. He won't call foul. He about knocks his tooth out, he's all bloody, turns around and he says, that was clean, I'm good. Because he's trying to earn the respect of all the other inmates. That's Caitlin Clark. This is the scene here. She's like, doesn't matter what happens to me. Now, she does a lot of whining on the court, so that this is hurting my argument a little bit. But that's this moment. It's like, what am I supposed to do? The girl's girlfriend is on my team. What am I supposed to do here?
Yeah, I think you're 100% accurate. And I think that, did I talk at all this week, last week, about someone sent me the Wright Thompson story, the profile that was written on Caitlin Clark. It was written in March. For some reason, I hadn't seen it. Wright Thompson's a brilliant sports writer, works for ESPN. He does all these long-form profiles of the biggest stars in sports. Have I talked about this on air? I don't think I have. So I read the story, and I felt like, dang, I wish I'd read this in March when it came out and was aware of it. But her emotional control issue with the refs and just emotional control on the court, that's been her issue since high school. Her high school coach was trying to deal with it. Lisa Bluter at Iowa was trying to deal with it and having some success. And so I wasn't aware of just like how far back this goes. She's got a rare Kobe-like intensity that you just never see from a girl. And she didn't, in the article it insinuates or it infers or states flat out that she didn't even have friends in high school because she couldn't really get along with her teammates in high school because they just didn't care about basketball at the level she did. It wasn't important. They were more worried about their prom dates and, you know, Justin Timberlake or whoever was popular. I don't even know who's popular with them, Taylor Swift or whomever. They just didn't care, and she cared immensely. And so it wasn't really until she got to Iowa, where she was surrounded by other girls who actually had a passion for the game of basketball, that she was even able to make real friends. And so I read the article and was like, this girl is smart, but this girl has an intensity that you never really see from girls. And I don't know if you ever really even see it from boys, this level. And I don't mean this in any way as a negative. I mean it because I think a lot of brilliant people are on the spectrum of some sort of autism or whatever. And I think there's a touch of that. And that's not me caping up and making excuses for Caitlin, but it is, I didn't have the full knowledge of like, oh wow, her high school coach used to cut up highlight tapes and be like, Caitlin, this is you losing emotional control, getting upset with the refs, your teammates, we can't have this. It scares the heck out of your other teammates. They didn't win a state championship. You've got this generational player in Iowa and you can't win the state championship. And she spooked her other teammates. Her passes were too good, her intensity, she'd get disappointed, she'd throw them an amazing pass, they couldn't catch it, and they just clammed up. And you know, and she would shoot him in and out of games, and she would say, the coach was like, that's a bad shot. And she's like, why should I pass her the ball? She don't put up shots in practice the way I do. I've worked for this. It's like, holy
Jason,
cow, that's Kobe Bryant. Anyway,
Jason,
go ahead, Steve.
It does remind me. I mean, so in other words, all their teammates were a bunch of smush Parkers. There's a famous story during the period of time post Shaq and pre Gasol. And it was that season, I think Kobe was putting up 50-point games, 40-point games on the regular. And there's a famous story during practice. Smush Parker comes up to him and tries to start a conversation about the Super Bowl. And he basically said, yo, you don't work hard enough. You're not good enough. You don't put enough into this to even talk about the Super Bowl with me, okay? And he just kind of walked away. That's Kobe, and I guess that's Caitlin.
I want to switch up to this final topic, Steve, that you're a huge college football fan. Obviously, TJ was a college football star. This will be interesting to all of us. Before I do, guys, I got to talk to you about our great friends at Prize Picks. And Butter's written, we won't play it today, but man, Butter's working on a little jingle here for us for Prize Picks that I think is going to be awesome. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. Prize Picks discounts select players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. My mom, as I've talked about authentically, loves to gamble, loves sports. Here's her picks for tomorrow's Thursday night football game. CeeDee Lamb, she's basically saying CeeDee Lamb's going to have score a touchdown, more than a half TD. Malik Neighbors, more than 10.5 receiving targets. Going to target, Mama, I don't know how I feel about that one. Dak Prescott, less than 35.5 passing attempts. I don't know if I agree with that. Dallas's running game is kind of suspect. Mama, I don't know if I like your picks this week. But anyway, download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code FEARLESS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's promo code FEARLESS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Steve, TJ, Butter, Matt Say the last name again for me.
Sluka.
Yeah, it's spelled Scola. You see that spelled in Scola. Sluka, Matt Sluka, the quarterback at UNLV, has tapped out. He put out a statement. Let's hear from Matt Sluka. I have decided to utilize my redshirt year and will not be playing in any additional games this season. I committed to UNLV based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled. Despite discussions, it became clear that these commitments would not be fulfilled in the future. I wish my teammates the best of luck this season and hope for the continued success of the program. So Matt Sluka is a grad transfer. UNLV's off to a 3-0 start. First time UNLV's been any good that I can ever remember, maybe since the days of Suge Knight. I don't know if they were, Suge Knight played there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Suge Knight played at UNLV.
Yeah.
Steve knew that. But they're 3-0. I think they're getting some votes in the coaches poll, maybe ranking number 23 in the country. So they got this grad transfer who's playing very well. And he says, hey, man, they're not giving me the money they promised me, and so I'm out of here. Pete Thamel reached out to him, I believe him, and said, got some further elaboration. Former UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka's NIL representation, Marcus Cromartie of Equity Sports, told ESPN that Sluka was verbally promised a minimum of $100,000 from UNLV assistant coach for transferring there. None of that money was paid per Cromartie. Once Sluka enrolled there was no effort by UNLV's collective to formalize a contract at that amount. Months after Sluka enrolled and Cromartie made multiple efforts with the staff and school to address the issue, he said the school and collective came back with a contract of $3,000 per month for the next 4 months. That's $88,000 less than what Cromartie said UNLV verbally promised up front. The only money Sluka has received from UNLV per Cromartie is a $3,000 relocation stipend for his move. Cromartie said there was never an ask for more money after UNLV's hot start, only the initial amount he was promised up front, blah, blah, blah. Man, this sounds a bit more complicated than the official story. Matthew Sluka I'd never heard of, and until this year or until they got off to this hot start. And to me, with an agent involved, this just sounds like a renegotiation that went poorly. And Sluka's like, I'm out. I can redshirt, and now I can sell myself to another team next year. Steve, your thoughts?
All right. First of all, Jason, be honest. You hadn't heard of him till last night when we tweeted you all this. It's UNLV football, who, by the way, was actually pretty good last year. They were so good that USC poached their quarterback, Jade Maeva, who's now the backup and I guess the future quarterback of Lincoln Riley. But I find it ironic. All I know is this: Jerry Tarkanian, he wouldn't have had this problem. He would have found a way to keep his player. That's all I know. He ended up taking a lot of transfers in. They never really went out. Here's the issue, though, Jason. There are two sides to this story. And if everything that Pete Thamel, who I trust, is true, I don't put a lot of blame on Sluka. This is the game. This is now the system. They've kind of ruined this. My view is, and I tweeted about this about an hour ago, I think it's time for college football and basketball to get away from any false pretense or association with amateurism. We know what the NIL is. It's basically pay for play. Okay, it's not about name, image, or likeness. It's about having a salary cap and paying the roster. Now, with that said, I think the way you need to do this is make these NIL deals binding on both sides. Okay, and you have to be really steadfast in that. Number two, I'd make them multi-year contracts. And I'd also have penalties for transfers, paybacks, certain restrictions. This is now professional football. Let's make it official. I think both sides, the players and the institutions, would be better off for it.
TJ, I know you're friendly with Barry Odom.
Yeah.
Was he one of your coaches at Mizzou?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's the head coach at UNLV. Your thoughts?
So this, just to be clear, is not coming from Barry Odom. I have not spoken. I've reached out, but I have not heard back. But I do know the man. And so I just, based on what I know about him and he was my coach for 3 years, I don't believe a word that's coming out of this kid's mouth or his representation or anything else. And by the way, I can't believe you weren't following him at Holy Cross, as we're all pretty big fans of Holy Cross. That's where he transferred from. Look, when you get into he was a graduate transfer. When you get into the transfer portal, your phone number goes out to everyone. He was getting recruited by Baylor, Kansas State, Mississippi State, Utah. He had a bunch of schools. They all got his phone number. Ended up going to UNLV. Maybe the other people weren't quite ready to take him. Don't know. He starts out this year. UNLV is ranked for the first time in their history. My guess is he walks into Barry Odom's office and says, hey, man, this is my last year. I'm not going to the NFL. I'm completing 43% of my passes. And so I need some more money. And I need
43% of my?
43.
Yeah.
He's a running quarterback.
Gotcha.
And so, he ran for 125 yards in their upset against Kansas and whatever. Not a great quarterback, right? But he fits certain systems. And he says, I got to make some money now or this isn't going to happen. And he walks in and says, here's what I need, 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is. And Odom's like, hey, man, I don't have a magic wand. And it's like, we got what we got. Let's win some more games, and you can probably get some more NIL deals as we go here. I bet you if we're ranked in the top 10, top 15, some more people are going to hear the name of Matt Sluka. And so the kid goes back, starts calling these other coaches who may have already been calling him, by the way. They may have come in and said, hey, man, I see you're doing pretty well. You still got time to redshirt this year, just so you know. Put that in the back of your head. And we got a couple $100,000 for you over here at Mississippi State or Utah or Baylor or wherever else. He walks into Odom's office. Odom says, no. He says, I'm redshirting and I'm out. That is the problem with perpetual free agency. So this kid at any time, anybody at any time, you can call it tampering, you can have issues. Anybody can walk out the door. So a lot of what Steve's saying needs to be addressed. This was guaranteed to happen at some point. This system of chaos, Joel Klatt talked about this for a while. This is a failure of epic proportions on the NCAA for not getting ahead of this and putting some guardrails up. It happened because of lawsuits. It's a free-for-all, and now it's a disaster.
TJ. The only thing you left out, TJ, is I don't think the kid went in and talked to Barry Odom. I think the agent called Barry Odom. I think the agent is the one calling all the other coaches and programs, and the agent is sitting there thinking, hey, if I'm going to make a buck off this kid, and I've been representing him, and perhaps I've funneled him a few $1,000s to help him move and blah, blah, blah. If I'm going to make any money, I have to strike now. This is a grad assistant. He doesn't have 3 years left. He can milk the system for one more year. And so the kid is letting the agent act on his behalf, but I guarantee the agent is driving this. Mm-hmm. The kid's just been focused on playing football and playing at a high level, and the agent's like, we're going to make some money, dude. Trust me, we're going to make some money. And the agent's figured out a way to do it.
But the kid, to be able to turn your back on your teammates, and I get it, you've not been there for 4 years, but you are turning your back on your teammates here. These are guys that you minimally probably did spring ball with, certainly did your training camp with, and now you're 3-0, you're ranked, you should all be celebrating, and you're ready to bail on everyone?
Well, TJ, I would bet that your bonds with your best Mizzou teammates, the ones that actually have impact, that took 2, 3, 4, 5 years to fully form. Mm-hmm. Those type bonds that you're talking about don't form in 6 months. That I was at Holy Cross for probably 3 or 4 years. He's probably got some real connections there. He's a mercenary, whether he showed up in the spring, summer, and now 3, 4 weeks. He ain't got no real bonds with these guys. These aren't his boys. These won't be the people he's calling
certainly not now.
20, 30 years from now. And here's the other thing that's probably there's probably a bunch of guys in there like they don't blame him. They're not mad at him. They're wishing they were in the same situation. That's how mercenary this whole thing of doing it for good old Mizzou, this whole thing doing it for Ball State. It's one of the reasons why I have my passion for Ball State football is not the same. I was the guy that was trying to be the glue guy for 30, 40 years of Ball State history. Always came to games, always connected with kids every year so that I knew the players that played 15 years after me, players that played 10, 15 years before me, players that played 20, 25 years after me. Now with this mercenary system, I'm like, why would I connect with these kids? They'll transfer. They're not as committed to Ball State. They can't even. It's just not like that anymore as it relates to college sports. The schools don't matter, and the connection to the schools don't matter. Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, Jason, I disagree, though. If you've been at UNLV for your whole college career and you're an upperclassman, trust me, you're invested into that institution and that program. I believe there would be harsh feelings. But let me point this out. This is nothing new. Last year, North Carolina State had a quarterback by the name of M.J. Morris. He did the exact same thing. In fact, he did it after they beat Miami, and it was after the fourth game that he played, and he said, I'm out. And he wasn't exactly Phillip Rivers, and Sluka is not exactly Randall Cunningham. But here's where they went wrong with the NIL. Look at the whole thing. What does NIL mean? Name, image, and likeness. That means if you're an iconic athlete, think Chris Webber at Michigan, Tim Tebow at Florida, Reggie Bush at USC, that you got a percentage of the proceeds of every jersey and a piece of merchandise or paraphernalia that featured your name or picture or image, right? And you can get endorsement deals like the way Caitlin Clark did at Iowa. The problem is, like I said, it's just now pay for play and having a salary cap. And unfortunately, if this really was like the NIL, Matthew Sluka could be like, hi, I'm Matthew Sluka. You want a great $1.99 steak and eggs deal? Come to the Golden Nugget. To open 20, but they don't have that. And the reality is about UNLV, and I'm in that city, pretty often because of my boxing ties. They don't even care about their basketball program anymore. Nobody, not nobody, but hardly anybody really cares about their football program. So I'm not even so sure those opportunities that years ago would have been right up the alley of Larry Johnson and Stacey Augmon and Greg Anthony would exist. But this is another issue that's a dynamic. The smaller schools like a UNLV will always be just a breeding ground for poaching, and let's call it what it is. It is poaching for the bigger programs. Case in point, last year's quarterback that I mentioned is now at USC.
Yeah, I think I said this earlier this week, or maybe I tweeted it out, but what I like as a solution is, you can transfer out of these mid-major schools as long as that school that receives you drops $200K into the Ball State collective, into the Central Michigan collective, the Holy Cross collective. And so, yeah, and again, I love Carson Steele, running back for the Chiefs, played 2 years at Ball State. I would have loved for UCLA, when they came and poached our running back, we were the only school willing to let the kid play running back. Everybody else wanted him to play linebacker. We let him play running back. He reveals himself as a great running back. We invest in him for 2 years. And so if UCLA, hey, you guys want to benefit from our investment, give us $250,000 for our collective, and now we can spend that money on our kids here. And maybe we get 2 kids. We had a tight end that I think went to South Carolina. That's another $200,000. So now I got $450,000, $500,000 to invest on my kids here at Ball State. That's a fair exchange.
Well, Jason, another rule that I would make as Commissioner Kim, you get one transfer. And this whole notion that you should be able to transfer multiple times without ever sitting out a year, back when you guys played, I think is ridiculous. It has caused anarchy.
Well, I certainly think that's true. And I just think, look, there's a reason the NFL does a salary cap. If you're actually going to have the schools paying them out instead of the businesses around the schools or Gatorade or whoever else, Mizzou is benefiting from this right now. Mizzou has a really good NIL program. We've purchased a lot of kids. It's made us right now, we're top, whatever. I think we just moved to 11th in the country. We were up to number 7. Last year we won 11. It's benefiting my group, which was a historically, top 40 program, and the last couple of years has made us top 10 to 15. But I still don't like it. It's destroy. I don't know who's going to be on the field year to year. You walk out and you say, I can give you $700,000. Why don't you come here? And if the kid has a bad year or somebody else offers him more, then he's gone the next year. It is a disaster. And what it doesn't do is the UNLVs of the world, the Ball States of the world, and at some point, maybe the Missouris of the world. We happen to be on the right side of this, but someday we could be on the wrong side because Missouri's not exactly a perpetual blue blood. You have to create something that allows it to be equal. And so, Tennessee's got 10% of their ticket prices now going to their future NIL stuff. That's coming directly from the school. That's going to be a problem, and it's going to get much worse.
Butter, I'm afraid to give you the last thought here, but we'll blind people. Doesn't even have to be on the NIL deal. Just your thoughts on the show in general, Butter, and your I can't believe your wife let you out of the house like that. But anyway, continue.
Well, I did not intend for my look to be this way. Dad, if you're watching out there, this was not my idea. No, I think the whole thing with the NIL in college, the NCAA needed to get blown up. The music business, I watched it get turned upside down on its head here in the last 5-10 years with all the new technologies. They'll get it figured out. But when the NCAA is making that much money for that long, this was inevitable. And I kind of like to see I hate to see the athletes and the issues that are coming along with it, but I like to see what's happening to the NCAA kind of getting nixed out of all of this.
But we really didn't want your real thoughts on that. I was just pandering here and letting you say a few things, but you actually gave real thoughts. I was setting you up for an opportunity to say something funny, and I guess you did. Where's your dad live at, by the way?
Up in Ashtabula, Ohio.
Huh. Where?
Near Cleveland, Ohio.
You're from Ohio?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah. I didn't know that. You're a good old Midwest boy. I didn't know that. Anyway, that's it. And that's all for us, I think. There was nothing else I wanted to do or say. Hey, on Friday, I just want to warn you all, I'm going to be out of town, and we'll have a conversation on Friday about Mark Robinson, the candidate for governor in North Carolina, spoke at roll call. We'll get into that, his controversy and all that, and how it relates to Fearless and roll call. We'll do that on Friday. We'll see you tomorrow, where we'll have some sort of reaction to what's going on with Caitlin Clark in her game tonight against the Connecticut Sun. That's tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Blessed, we are living, get back, we are receiving, all deceiving, we all wanna be free. We want freedom. I just wanna be, I just wanna be, I just wanna be, I just